Good evening. Welcome to Convention of States Indiana Live. Do you think we have a big problem with our federal government? If you do, stay tuned because we at Convention of States have a solution as big as the problem. Our broadcast host is Dale Parrish. He's the Convention of States Indiana State Director. Take it away, Dale.
Well, thank you, Marengo. Marengo Mike. Uh, Always enjoy having him introduce our broadcast every Monday evening. So thank you very much, Marengo Mike. As he said, my name's Dale Parrish. I am the state director for Convention of States here in Indiana, and I want to welcome you to our broadcast. I know I say this on every broadcast, but we really do have a special broadcast for you this evening. Our first segment, which is always our discussion segment, where we have a topic that we talk about. And tonight, we're going to talk about Marengo Mike. We're going to introduce you to Marengo Mike and introduce you to the human behind Marengo Mike. And that gentleman's name is Ken Kashuba. He is our state communications coordinator. And Ken created Marengo Mike. So we're going to bring Ken on, and we're going to talk about how Marengo was created and named and so forth and so on. So I hope you enjoy our segment tonight on Marengo Mike and have a better understanding of what role he plays in our organization, because he does play a role, and we hope that he will be playing a bigger role as time goes on. So Marengo Mike is our topic tonight. Now, beyond that segment, then we're going to get into giving you some general information, some about resources that we have available here in the state and nationally. And then I want to give you some updated information, some current numbers about how we're doing here in the state of Indiana. Then time permitting, I want to get into the basics of Convention of States, the three tenets that we practice and abide by in Convention of States, not only nationally, but here, of course, here in Indiana. So, and then beyond that, we'll try our best to recognize individuals and recognize any comments that people make. I would encourage you, please, to make comments. I'll try my best to get them flashed up here. Keep them short. We're limited on the amount of space that we have when putting up comments, but I'll try my best to put your comment up. And then we'll wrap things up and close out the evening. And I'll tell you about our next broadcast. We have another good one planned for you next Monday evening. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in Marengo Mike. We've been trying to make contact with Marengo Mike. As you can see, Marengo Mike lives in a cave. And so let me see if I can make contact with him. Marengo Mike, are you there? Oh, good. I was really concerned as to whether our connection would work in the cave. You must have a good internet connection in the cave there, huh? Is that right? Okay. Okay. Well, folks, I hope you can all hear this. So we didn't get a chance to test this out, so I'm hoping everyone can hear this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring on Ken, and hopefully there he is. Hi, Ken.
Hi, Dale.
Hi, Ken Kashuba, our state communications coordinator.
How are
And
you?
so,
And how's Marengo? I understand you got a chance to get him on his bat phone there tonight. That's good to hear.
yeah, yeah, we made good contact with him.
Good,
So,
good.
uh, as I stated, Marengo Mike, or Ken is Marengo Mike, and he is the voice behind the character. And so let's get into this, Ken, and talk about Marengo. Now, he lives in a cave, right? You want to tell us about this cave, if you could, please.
Yeah, well, the whole idea behind the Marengo Mike was the fact that he was a character that was part of the imagination of of a of a person who uh, might not be on top of all the current topics, the current politics of the day, and not involved in everyday activities of life. Somebody who might have been perceived as living in a cave. Um, and to a certain degree, I think there's my idea was there's a lot of people out there that just don't pay much attention. Even when it comes time to voting, most people, a lot of people out there that just don't bother. So the idea was to take a person like Marengo, and he the Marengo cave is a true cave. I mean, that's a famous.
Yeah, I did. I want us to make sure we Marengo Cave is in fact a real location, right? A real thing.
Yeah, Marengo Cave happens to be one of the largest caves in Indiana, and matter of fact, in the region. It's a very large cave down in southern Indiana, right on the border of Ohio. I mean, Kentucky,
Okay,
and
so it's in the Appalachian foothills, I guess you could say,
yeah,
right?
I think it's Crawford County, and it's down there in a segment there where there's a few other caves in the area, but you can actually go down and tour Marengo Cave. They have a regular tour there. It's got quite a history. It goes back into the 1800s.
Okay,
So
all right,
Marengo basically was a guy who ventured out. He his life began as a character that was placed in the cave fictionally by some of the founders or the owners of the property. Had a couple of sons and daughters, and they basically the cave was an area that they played in and discovered themselves. Uh,
right.
so Marengo basically, as he ventured into town one day, after being receiving a little bit of cave education by his founders there, found his way into town and was able to pick up a local newspaper, and he spent some time reading, and he started reading about Indiana being the sixth state to actually you know, uh, support the resolution and became the sixth state. So that caught his interest, and from there he basically started reading a little bit more about what this convention of states was all about.
Folks, now this is Ken made this all up, okay, and uh, we had to. Matter of fact, I've got a video. I think I've got another video. Maybe sometime we'll play it, where you actually explain all this, and because we had to Ken and I kind of develop this character, and then we had to introduce him to all the other people in leadership here in our state and get their buy-in on this. So Ken came up with this story that he's relaying to you, and and in fact how Marengo Mike um, discovered Convention of States. So Marengo Mike does venture outside of the cave from time to time and does interact with the public, and that's how he saw a newspaper and saw a column on Convention of States, right? All right,
Right.
Ken.
Well, and he had some concerns. I think he, from what he was reading in the politician section and the opinion section, I think probably spent a lot of time too. But he had some concerns. He had some concerns about politicians who had been there 30, 40 years, and a lot of them coming out very wealthy, and then he also had a big concern because he obviously living in a cave and in a very outdoorsy type situation. He had concerns about the state and having federal overreach. He didn't want this big government he was reading about to be dictating to him about his cave or any of that. So there were legitimate concerns.
I know he was concerned about the national debt, and he felt like our we shouldn't have career politicians. So he believed in term limits. So
Correct.
he was right in sync with Convention of States and what we adhere to and what we stand for. So he figured, hey, I want to get involved in this organization, right?
Yeah, he did some investigating and found out that he could actually become a volunteer and participate, and that excited Marengo.
Now, of course, we are calling him Marengo Mike, but he didn't have a name when he first came out of that cave and first applied to become a volunteer, right?
Yeah, no, he was pretty much just a cave boy. Didn't really have a name. And so, becoming involved with the Convention of States, he had a little bit of concern really about not only he wanted to, help out in some way, but he didn't really know how to introduce himself, or was kind of afraid as to what people would think if this guy showed up, didn't have a name, and came out of a cave. So we had to do something about that.
Well, and what we did was, of course, as Ken said, he approached us and said, "Hey, would you give me a name? What are you going to call me?" Well, what we decided to do was we ran a contest of sorts amongst all the leadership in Convention of States here in Indiana, and so we first had everyone submit a name that they thought would be a good name for us to use, and quite actually, I was very surprised. The list was quite long. I think we had. I'm trying to think, Ken. I think we had something like 20 or so possible names that we could use. Well, and then, so what I did then was we compiled the list of all the suggestions, and then we put it out for a vote amongst all the leadership, and Marengo Mike came out to be the winner. And so that's how Marengo Mike got his name, and we've been using that name for him ever since. So I think it was a good name. I think it turned out to be a good name.
There was a lot of good ones on the list. Yeah, there was a lot.
There were some good ones. Yeah.
We just felt that Marengo Mike kind of fit, and the whole idea behind the character too is that animation is popular and characters are used all the time, and we just felt it would be kind of a neat thing to add to our state as one of the leading states in trying to enhance our look and give ourselves something a little different than some of the other states to use. So
now we're continuing to use and look for, I should say, we're continuing to look for ways to utilize Marengo Mike. Obviously, our viewers know here that we use him for introducing the broadcast, just like he did this evening. We've also used him in introducing our state conference call that we do once a month with all of our leadership individuals. So have you got any other ideas, Ken? Have you had any other? We're continuing to work on this, I know.
Yeah, well, we'd like to continue to use them in social media. Obviously, there's a big draw for the social media aspect. Your Instagrams and Facebooks out there. It's always neat to have a character that you can use to kind of draw attention to your posts and things. So the social media is an area I think we'll continue to try and expand for Mike. And I think
the training area, we do a lot of training for new leaders that come into our state. So we are definitely including him in the training program to introduce new leaders to him. But I'm hoping that maybe we can find some other ways to make him part of the training program in some way or another.
Right. Training videos, other ways that we might be able to use him. Sure.
Yeah. Now I want to tell everybody that we are looking at a possible voice change for Marengo Mike. We've had some people mention to us that they're not real high on his voice right now. So we're looking at we've talked to Marengo Mike about this, and he's all in favor of maybe looking at a different voice. So we're working on that so don't be surprised, people, if he would come on here sometime in the future with a different voice. Okay, well, Ken, you want to have why don't we have Marengo Mike say goodbye to the viewers for this evening, and we'll close out this segment, okay?
Sure enough, Dale. And I'm looking forward to any way that I can be improved. As you know, Geppetto made Pinocchio and did lots of things for Pinocchio. So I'm sure the good folks at the cartoon hospital can give me a good voice, one that everybody will enjoy hearing. So I look forward to that, and I thank you for having me on tonight. And we look forward to introducing you in the near future and for upcoming broadcasts. Thanks a lot, Dale.
All right. Thank you, Ken. Have a good evening, bud. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Dale.
Ken Kashuba, I'll tell you that was fun. I enjoyed doing that. And I hope you all whoop. I don't want to. There I am. Okay. All right. Let's now move on to the next part here and next segment. And in order to do this, the next part, I need to bring up my PowerPoint presentation. And let me make sure that I'm unmuted here. Okay. Now, in order to give you a full screen on this PowerPoint, I need to switch you to the slideshow option, and you can see that I'm trying to do that now. There we go. Got you now to the slideshow. All right. Okay, let's get into the next segment here, and I want to talk about the resources that we have available to us here in Indiana, as well as nationally. Our main resource that we rely on heavily is our national website, conventionofstates.com. You're going to hear us make reference to this website from time to time. It's jam-packed with a wealth of information, but it's also on the backside is a tool that we use to administer our organization here in Indiana. Every state obviously has access to that in Convention of States. Now, embedded in this conventionofstates.com website is our state webpage, conventionofstates.com/Indiana. Obviously, a little more focused look at the state of Indiana. So feel free to take a look at that on the website. Social media platforms, we're on a number of platforms. Probably our main one right now is Facebook. We have a state page, Convention of States, Indiana. Our broadcast this evening is coming to you through that state Facebook page, so we use it frequently. YouTube channel, COS Indiana. Now, our YouTube channel is very much an educational resource. We have a number of narrated PowerPoint presentations on there. We have recordings of these broadcasts. We also have links to a podcast that our legislative liaison, Paul Phillips, does. It's called the Free to Be Free podcast. Excellent, excellent podcast. Um, and so we've put each of Paul's, we've put a link to each of Paul's podcast, the Free to Be Free, on our YouTube channel for your convenience. We're also on Twitter, hashtag COS Indiana, Instagram, Convention of States Indiana, LinkedIn, and we're on a number of other platforms. So if you're a social media person, we're out there. You shouldn't have any problem finding us. Okay, let me give you some quick numbers on how we're doing here in the state. In 2019, we surpassed 41,000 supporters here in the state of Indiana. Been growing at a tremendous rate here in the state. So we've set our goal for 2020 to be 52,000 supporters by the end of 2020. Off to a good start so far. So we're looking to reach that goal of 52,000. Now, of the supporters, we have about 2,900 volunteers, people that have indicated a willingness to help out if called upon. And we have about 40 individuals in leadership positions. Now, if you have any desire to get further involved in Convention of States beyond being a supporter, then go to this website, our national website, conventionofstates.com. Click on the menu selection, Take Action, and scroll down and look at the different volunteer opportunities we have. Now, if one of them is of interest to you, open it up, read about it. If you're very interested in it, go ahead and make application for that. Now, you're not obligated in any way. Don't worry about that. But what happens when you make application, then your name comes up on a report that I see every day, as well as a few others. And one of us will be in contact with you then to further discuss your interest. Again, you're not obligated in any way, so don't worry about that. Like I said, I'll say it one more time. Please, we need people in leadership positions. So if you have any desire to get more involved in Convention of States, this is the way to do it. Okay. All right, let's talk about the basics then. These are the basics of Convention of States, the three tenets that we use that guides our program nationally, as well as here in the state of Indiana. The first tenet is the problem, and we think the problem with our federal government now is that there are structural issues with our federal government that are not being addressed. And we believe that our federal government lacks the will and the courage, quite honestly, to address these problems. Not blaming any one particular party. This has been going on for decades. Both parties have contributed. So, but we think this is the basic problem. Now, we've defined the problem a little further into three abuses we refer to as abuses. The first one being the national debt. We're over 23 trillion in debt as a nation. And as you know, this is continuing to grow. It's not being addressed. We believe this is an abuse that needs to be addressed. The second abuse is the regulatory crisis. You know, the administrative state now is considered the fourth branch of government. Much more needs to be done in this area. I know the current administration has been eliminating some regulations, but much more needs to be done, especially in the lines or in the areas of how regulations are created. So much more needs to be done in this area. The final abuse has to do with state sovereignty. When our country was founded, it was founded on the concept of dual federalism, where the federal government and the states would share in power. Well, that's all tilted in favor of the federal government. And we believe the career politician has played a major role in this out of balance situation. So career politicians, we believe there should be term limits. Term limits on Congress, as well as our federal judiciary and other federal officials. So term limits is the third area that we believe um, in the as far as the abuses are concerned. What's our solution? Well, our solution is right in Article 5 of the Constitution. We're not making this up, folks. Article 5 of our Constitution. Article 5 describes the two methods as to how amendments can be proposed to the Constitution. Now, let me briefly go over each of those methods. The first method is the one we're used to seeing, and that's where 2/3 of Congress would propose an amendment, and then that amendment, that proposed amendment, would have to be ratified by 3/4 of the state legislatures, or 38 states, in order for it to become an amendment. Well, there is a second method described in Article 5, and this is what we're all about. And that's whereby 2/3 of the state legislatures can call for a convention of states to be conducted for the purpose of proposing amendments to the Constitution, which then would have to go through the same ratification process as in Method 1. 3/4 of the state legislatures, or 38 states, would have to ratify any proposed amendment for it to become an amendment to the Constitution. So this is what we want to see happen. Now, how we want to bring this about, this is our plan. Our plan is in two parts. The first part we refer to as the application strategy. And this is where we have literally designed the application that we want to get 34 states to utilize in calling for a convention of states. And in that application, the application in the subject matter of the application, and that's just the subject matter that determines the agenda at the convention. But the subject matter describes 3 areas: fiscal restraints, limiting the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, and term limits. Those are the 3 areas we believe would address the abuses that we described in the problem. So we want to get 34 states to utilize this application to call for a convention of states. And it's very important, because in calling for the convention and applying for the convention, all the applications have to be the same. All right. The other part of our plan is mobilizing the grassroots. And when I say the grassroots, I'm referring to citizens and legislators. So you and me and our state legislators, we're the ones, we are the grassroots. We're the ones that are going to make this happen. Now, we're convention of states, the momentum is growing. We're in all 50 states. We have legislation going to some degree or another in all 50 states. 15 states have already passed this application, also referred to as the resolution. And Indiana is one of those 15 states. We were the 6th state to pass this resolution. So we are considered a passed state. So, but as I said, we need to get to 34. I think we're going to be making a tremendous progress in 2020. So keep an eye on us. But even more so, more importance is get involved. We need you to get involved, at least become a supporter, and go to our national website, open an account, and sign that petition. Become a supporter, and if you want to get more involved, then look at a leadership position to get involved in. All right. Now is the time to get involved. If you have a New Year's resolution that you wanted to get more involved at Convention of States, hey, it's still early in the year. Now's the time to get it done. So I look forward to seeing you all get involved in Convention of States. We want you. We want your help. Okay, let's get back to looking now and at. Let me get that out of the way. Okay. Oh my goodness, we got quite a few people that. Okay. Evidently, okay, I see some comments here that they couldn't hear Marengo Mike, so we were a little concerned about how that was going to come about. So hopefully, let me hear. there's Susan Lyon is with us tonight, and Susan is a new volunteer with us. Susan's going to be working hopefully on a newsletter and also being a social media warrior here in the state. And here Susan is telling us that she couldn't hear the other voice. So sorry about that, folks, that we thought we should have tested that before we did it, and evidently it didn't work. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, I see Jerry Rowe is with us tonight, and Jerry is he's got a very long comment here. I can't get it all on there, but Jerry is one of our we refer to as a systems information analyst here in our state. So Jerry is very much involved in other many aspects of our organization. Now I see here Linda Gonzalez was glad. Oh no, I said Linda. It's Lydia, isn't it? So that's that. I know who that is. That's Melba Kaiser. That's she's going by a different name here, but she said ditto on what Susan said. She couldn't hear Marengo Mike. So sorry about that. We really messed up. We really messed up on that one. So all right, thank you all for your comments this evening. Now let me tell you about our next broadcast, which is going to be on February 17th. And we're going to have Debbie Stewart come on. Debbie is our one of our Indiana homeschool teachers and Convention of States volunteer. And Debbie has been presenting to us the series on constitutional literacy. And so Debbie's going to come on next Monday evening, take a little break from the constitutional literacy program, and she's going to talk to us about religious freedom. Now, recently, President Trump signed an executive order dealing with religious freedom, and this caught Debbie's interest, and we all should be interested in it. And of course, it relates to our First Amendment rights under the Constitution, freedom of speech. So Debbie is going to take our next broadcast on the 17th, and she's going to present to us the ins and outs of this new executive order that President Trump recently signed on religious freedom. So should be a very interesting evening. So hope you all can join us that evening and for that. And then Debbie will be coming back very soon to give us an after next Monday and give us another chapter on the constitutional literacy program. Okay, so let's get down, and now let's close things out for the evening. And I always like to close the broadcast with my favorite quote from our president, Mark Meckler. And Mark's quote is basically that, our country is faced with a fundamental question. Okay. And that question is not what should we do? The question is who will decide? And yes, the question facing us is a two-word question. Very simply, who decides? We in Convention of States, we believe we the people should have a greater say-so in decisions in our federal government. So we believe we the people should be involved more so in these decisions. So that's what we're all about. I love this quote, and I always like to use it to close out my broadcast. So once again, thank you all for joining us this evening. Hope you've enjoyed the broadcast. Please plan on joining us again on February 17th. And I might also mention that our broadcast, every broadcast is recorded and almost immediately appears on our state Facebook page. So you can always go to the state Facebook page and take a look at the most current broadcast recording. If you want to see some other broadcast recordings, then go to our YouTube channel, COS Indiana, where we have all of our recordings posted. And you can browse and look at those that maybe you missed that would be of interest to you. So once again, I want to say good night to everyone and thank you for joining us. Once again, if you want to get involved in Convention of States and get involved in this movement, we're going to make history, folks. We're not only going to make history, but we're going to save our country. We believe we're saving our country. So we look forward to your involvement, and please get involved with us. Thank you very much. Have a good night.